New South Wales, Queensland and the Northern Territory are expecting the worst of heatwave conditions sweeping across the country today, with the Weather Bureau warning the worst is yet to come. Parts of Western Sydney are heading for 42 degrees today, while Queensland will be a state of extremes, with both heatwave and flood warnings in place for vast swathes of the state.
Victorian firefighters have spent the night battling an out-of-control bushfire in the state's west, one of several which broke out across Victoria yesterday on what was the hottest December day since Black Summer. We'll head to Brisbane later this hour and also get an update from authorities. But right now, let's bring in Miles Holbrook Walk in Sydney and Laura Mayers, who's in the fire zone in Creswick. And Miles, we'll start with you. What's happening in Sydney today?
Well, it's going to get very hot here, Emma, and it's not just occurring in Sydney where I am in Olympic Park, where we can expect peaks to be around the mid-30s, right on the fringe of Sydney, in Richmond in the northwest of the city, Penrith on the very western edge and Campbelltown on the southwestern edge, all forecast to be beyond 40-degree temperature maximums, and that will swelter right into that midday and later into the afternoon peak. But it's not just Sydney that's going to experience this warm weather. Large parts of the state are experiencing heat wave conditions and have been a part of this heat wave over the last couple of days, including at Wilcannia, the far west of New South Wales, where it saw a peak beyond 45 degrees. That's a record for that part of the state for this time of the year as well. So incredibly hot temperatures this summer, which has prompted warnings for people and advice from the Bureau of Meteorology to not just take care of themselves, but also to look out for people, in particular people who may be vulnerable to this kind of extreme heat. We're talking about the elderly as well as the very young in society, and to take whatever precautions they can to stay cool. If it's been indoors, it means limiting the amount of light into a home or apartment complex. It's also, if you have access to air cons or fanning, to use that to cool the place you're staying in. Of course, there'll be many popular swimming holes right across the state today, and we are also going to be hearing from the Rural Fire Service here in New South Wales as how they are hoping to combat these dry conditions, as they are incredibly hot right around the state, and as such present a series of fire warnings and ratings of particular note and danger right across the state, and essentially the whole of state response that's needed to manage that. Of course, the tip in the meantime, though, is to find a shelter and stay as cool as you can in the meantime. And some good news coming for Sydney, at least. By around the evening, that weather should continue to cool with a southerly change coming through. Emma?
OK, Miles, thank you. Let's head to Laura now. Laura, good morning. What's the latest on the fire in Victoria?
Yeah, good morning. So I can indicate today, thankfully, the message for that fire on Old Melbourne Road near Creswick has actually dropped down to an advice message. It does remain in place this morning for those residents nearby, so that includes in Dean, Wattle Park, Clarks Hill and in Newlyn. The fire is at this stage not yet under control. Crews are at that fire ground still working to bring it under control, but as you can see, very different conditions today here in Creswick in the Ballarat area. Much cooler. It's not even 15 degrees this morning, and we even had a little smattering of rain. So things are definitely different to what we saw yesterday, where temperatures in this region peaked at about 41, 42 degrees with some pretty severe winds, which made things quite difficult for those CFA and forest fire management personnel to bring under control. It started to move after the fire started up at about 5 p.m. in a sort of northeasterly direction up towards that Newlyn area, which was causing some concern for those authorities in the region, and parts of the area had to be evacuated. And that included a prospector who was out at the state forest, the Creswick State Forest, who basically had to drop his things and run. His name is Coltos, and this is what he had to say yesterday when we spoke to him.
Looked up and there was a bunch of bloody smoke coming over, and flames weren't too far away, so I pretty much just packed up what I could. I grabbed me solar panels and me fridge off the ground, the stuff that was still pretty much attached to the car, and hightailed out. I went past the other campgrounds and honked and woke everyone up and let them all know it was all happening, and out we went.
Laura, you mentioned it's a bit cooler where you are, but has that cool change swept across Victoria now?
Through most of Victoria, parts of it, there are parts that obviously there are still some sort of warmer areas, especially up north near the border, but it is expected to be a bit easier today, especially in this Ballarat area where we saw quite a few spot fires popping up, but obviously those authorities will continue to monitor conditions throughout the day.
OK, Laura and Miles, thank you.
Well, 2 Australian women have returned home after a suspected mass alcohol poisoning at a Fijian resort that landed 7 tourists in hospital. Fiji reporter Lethe Mavono joins us now from Lautoka in Fiji. Good morning, Lethe. What's the latest?
Good morning. We understand that there are still 2 patients now at Lautoka's Aspen Hospital. However, overnight there's been some discrepancy around whether those 2 still in the hospital are actually Australian nationals. As far as we have been reporting, there were 4 Australian nationals, 2 are discharged and 2 are still in the hospital in Lautoka. However, overnight, while talking to the ABC 7:30 program, Fijian Deputy Prime Minister and Minister in charge for Tourism said that there's actually only 1 Australian left and that the other is actually a Fijian national. We have been speaking to Fijian authorities this morning to get a clarification on that. We know as well that samples were taken from all 6 patients who made it into the Lautoka's Aspen Hospital, and these will be taken to Fiji's Police Forensics Unit, which is actually based in the capital, Suva, 4 hours away from Lautoka, where all of this is happening. We hope to know by the end of the day how long that toxicology investigations will continue. It's important to note that Fiji's Police Forensics Unit is based in the capital, a bit of a distance away from here. However, Fijian authorities have told us they will tell us about the rest of these investigations. Right now, we're looking to know what the condition of the 2 patients at Lautoka's Aspen Hospital still is.
Lethe Mavono, thank you very much for that update from Fiji.
In other news this morning, New South Wales rail unions are threatening possible strike action on New Year's Eve, causing potential commuter chaos for revellers. Rail, tram and bus union members yesterday voted overwhelmingly in support of taking another round of industrial action from December the 28th. It comes as rail unions and the government await a federal court ruling on whether a separate round of industrial action should be allowed to proceed.
November was the deadliest month on the nation's roads in nearly 7 years. 129 people were killed in crashes in November, causing the Australian Automobile Association to call for faster action on road safety reform.
Ousted Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has denied planning to flee the country in what appear to be his first comments since rebel forces took control of Syria. In a statement, the former Syrian leader insists he remained in Damascus at a Russian airbase until rebel fighters arrived in the city, causing the evacuation to Moscow.
Health authorities have advised doctors to limit starting new patients on hormone replacement therapy amid a severe shortage. A dozen different HRT products used to treat a range of menopause symptoms are currently in short supply, with some not expected to return to normal for 12 months. The Therapeutic Goods Administration says managing medicine shortages is a priority for the federal government, and it's approved patches from overseas to help ease supply issues.
A woman who threw a banana milkshake at British politician Nigel Farage during this year's UK election campaign has been handed a suspended 13-week jail sentence. Victoria Thomas Bowen's sentence included about $300 to be paid in compensation and 120 hours of community service work. It was the second time Mr Farage had been struck by a banana milkshake after a similar incident on the campaign trail in 2019.
And let's take a quick look at the global markets, and the futures are at the moment trading down. Wall Street has also closed lower, and the Aussie dollar at the moment is buying 63.67 US cents. We've got falls as well on Brent crude, while gold is trading just that little bit higher.